Welcome to PCM Podcast, a series of informative podcasts with experts in their fields, exploring a wide range of topics in payments. The theme for today's session is how account-based payments will challenge card payments. Account-to-account or A2A payments are nothing new. Bank transfer services have existed for many years and traditionally been used by consumers to schedule regular bill payments, like direct debits, or using domestic payment schemes like IDL in the Netherlands. But through PSD2 and instant payments, A2A has genuine opportunity to become a credible rival to the card payment rails for everyday transactions as well. A2A payments are hot property in the investment market right now at the moment as well, as they potentially offer a slicker, more seamless alternative to card payments. Only recently, Visa acquired the Swedish A2A fintech Tink, and Mastercard acquired the Danish A2A provider Aiia. There are also currently more reasons for this type of transaction to grow in popularity. For both parties, payer and payee, there is a better user experience and greater security against fraud compared to traditional card payments, and for the merchant, there are significantly lower fees than card-based alternatives. With Mastercard announcing it will increase its interchange fees from October 2021 for UK consumers buying from Europe, and rumours that a merchant fee hike, delayed by the pandemic, will be reintroduced by Visa and Mastercard, A2A has a unique opportunity to capitalise. I'd like to introduce our expert for the day, Henrik Hodem, Senior Product Manager for Account-Based Payments at Worldline. Henrik, welcome.
Thanks, Alex, and hello to everybody.
So let's jump straight into this, and we start with a reasonably broad question to kind of give an overview. But why, in your opinion, is now the time for account-to-account payments to make a big impact on the European payments landscape?
Yeah, we currently see multiple activities going on in Europe that have a positive impact on the introduction of such a new payment method. Yeah? First of all, definitely it's the deployment of instant payment across Europe. So many banks have implemented already all technical means for being able to do instant payments. And on the other side, we also see that the commercial conditions are now coming in the right direction to saying, okay, discussions about fees around instant payment. So we see here the possibility to really have a account-based payment executed in real time. Secondly, we of course have the PSD2. PSD2 is mandatory for each European bank and allows third-party providers to get access to the consumer's account, of course, with the permission and the consent of the consumer. Yeah? This access can be used to retrieve account information that can be used for instance, evaluating the risk related to a payment, but on the other side, also the possibility to initiate a payment based on SCT or SCT Inst. Yeah? Beside these very concrete activities, we also see general tendencies like the replacement of cash payments by cashless payments, especially now with COVID. Yeah, and also the payments getting contactless. Yeah, so we see that the acceptance infrastructure is changed, and now the majority of the payments are already contactless. Beside that, we see very new activities like request to pay. So the establishment of a European scheme around request to pay, which is a kind of supporting functionality for account-based payments. It's the possibility for the merchant to send a request to the consumer, either in the shop use case or in the e-com use case, to request that the consumer is paying something, and the consumer of course can choose an account payments based on SCT against to execute this payment. And as last topic, we see also a big movement on the business-to-business market, where we see European regulations coming up for making it a fully digitalized journey for e-invoicing of a company towards their customers. And here also having a full digital journey, of course, account-based payments could play a significant role there.
Okay. I mean, you mentioned or referenced contactless there and the digital transformation. I think this week there were two interesting pieces of news. One which I saw specifically around the DACH region, some very interesting numbers coming out from the contactless payment context over there. A big move by consumers in there. I think the UK is well documented on its travel path towards digital. So on that basis, on the account-to-account side, which countries or regions potentially in Europe do you think are hotspots for the uptake of A2A payments?
Yeah, definitely we have to look at the Nordics. Yeah? These are, in my opinion, the most advanced countries. We have their very successful mobile payment schemes like Swish in Sweden, or Mobile Pay in Denmark, or Vipps in Norway, which have already a significant market share, not only on the person-to-person area, but also now entering the retail market. Yeah? And here we can say these countries are almost 100% cashless today. Yeah? So compared, for instance, to Germany. Yeah? The second example I would like to mention is the Netherlands with the Ideal scheme, where we have account-based payments very similar to PSD2 already since more than 10 years. Here, this payment method is by far the most successful payment method for e-commerce transactions. Yeah? Much more used than, for instance, PayPal, which is in other countries the preferred payment method. And here we see that with the right marketing and with the right commercial framework around, these payments could really become a significant player in these e-com market.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess Worldline is a massive and global company. So any areas or countries outside the EU that are particularly taking up the A2A payments baton?
First of all, I would like to mention that account-based payment, we see it as a part of the open banking activities. Yeah? So with the possibility of banks, or with the capability of banks providing APIs to their internal functionalities like the consumer account, such payments can be facilitated, but not only the payment itself. As I mentioned at the beginning, we also have account data that is now possible to retrieve, and we can imagine multiple additional functionalities on top of these basic APIs. Yeah? So that's why if we look outside Europe, you maybe not find account-based payment, but open banking you find in almost all continents. Yeah? So we have Brazil lately launching their own open banking activities, and they will be going live very soon. We have also in the US where we have they call it consumer permissioned financial data sharing, where at least the possibility exists to retrieve information from accounts. And of course, also Australia already since last year have started an initiative around open banking for accredited third parties. So we see it's not an isolated activity from Europe. Maybe the advantage here is that we have really agreed on a standard, and with the majority of countries following the standard, we could have really the good basis for deploying it. But we see similar activities ongoing in the different continents, and I expect that in the future there will be also interoperability between the different open banking islands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very interesting that. I think that there's already some bilateral connections that are occurring out there across the world. I guess major markets that are bordered against each other or that have a business necessity. So I think already the beginnings of that are starting to happen. I guess none of this stuff takes place by accident, right? There's always a reason for the success of any technology. So I'd like to go into discussing some of the major advantages that come from A2A payments, and perhaps we break the question down into three parts, which might look like the consumer and the payer, the merchant or the payee, and then perhaps we look at a comparison against other payment methods. So what are some of the major advantages for the consumer or the payer?
Okay, before jumping into this topic, maybe a few words about why this additional payment method now was created as well. Yeah? So PSD2, beside the increase of the security, was also meant to bring more innovation and more competition to the traditional payment market. It was very difficult for new players to enter this market because of all the regulations and all the barriers that exist to really enter such a closed market. Yeah, and that was the reason why PSD2 said, okay, the asset that is important is the consumer account, and we would like to give access to this consumer account to certified third-party providers to enable them, like fintechs, to enable them to create new innovative ideas and also to challenge a little bit the existing players and the other payment methods. Yeah. So therefore, this was the idea. Yeah. And now it comes to the fact, if you introduce such a new payment method, of course, you have to compare yourself with the existing other players on the market. Yeah. Looking at the consumer, for me, this is the most important part of the story. Yeah. So if you don't win the end user using your new payment method, you will be not successful. Yeah. And what we see here is that a payment is not a topic by itself anymore. So it's really becoming commodity, and you have to bring additional value to the consumer to convince him to use your new method. Yeah? Because we have plenty of payment methods. You could even pay with cash, but there is no need. It's not like in other areas you can choose one of the other options. So what are the advantages for account-based payment related to that? Yeah? So first of all, we are fully focusing on mobile device usage. Yeah? So here, this opens us, compared to plastic cards, a completely new range of possibilities in combining payments with other things. Just an example, maybe from an unusual area, is transportation, yeah, where you, of course, first would like to know when the next train from Berlin to Frankfurt is driving, and then as a very last step, you just want to pay. Yeah. So here, the combination with product information, but also with loyalty, plays an important role and could be really the winning factor for consumers to use it. But there are also, of course, let's say, traditional advantages, like we have a high security based on the PSD2 standard with the two-factor authentication. We have cross-channel user experience. Yeah, it's not limited like a plastic card to only physical stores. You can use it in the internet. You can use it person to person. You can use it in the store as well. So therefore, I think multiple reasons where we believe this could become a significant payment method on the market.
Okay. So that kind of captures from the consumer side. I guess a lot of the arguments stand for the merchant side, but are there any kind of key benefits that you see from the merchant side as well?
Yes, definitely. I would even say for the merchant, there are, let's say, even more significant advantages than for the consumer. The first, most important part is, of course, related to fees. Yeah. Account-based payment is based on credit transfer, so there is no scheme fee or interchange fee related to that. And we see also on the second side that in combination with instant payment, we have a very fast reconciliation cycle. So the funds available period for a merchant would be really short, and especially for high amount goods, this is an important part. Yeah? Just imagine you purchase a car, then of course the sellers want to have the funds today, even before you get the car. Yeah, so therefore we have sometimes a little bit strange behaviors. Yet, like you have to send the money 1 week before to make sure that it's on the account of the merchant in time. Here we have really the possibility to improve the user experience a lot for these type of merchants. And secondly, the multi-channel experience for merchants, and also across Europe, yeah, for branches in multiple countries with PSD2 is the standard in all Euro countries. The merchant can have the same payment methods in multiple countries, not restricted to the domestic payment methods, for instance.
Okay. let's try and get a little bit more kind of granular in the problem. So I guess you guys on the broad level identified A2A as an area that you wanted to attack and go into. From the perspective of kind of planning which parts of that you went into, are there particular case studies, and you've referenced a couple already, but are there any particular case studies that you would particularly say A2A has a considerable advantage over other payment methods, sorry, and you know what kind of challenges were solved or what challenges can be solved if both consumer and merchant were to move, you know, more into an A2A payment method around those case studies?
Yeah. I definitely see, let's say, three different areas. One is to looking at the e-commerce use case, where you have, and the e-commerce is not always a web shop only. It's also, for instance, the example I gave with ticketing, where you use your mobile phone to purchase a ticket. And here the user experience is quite obvious for the end user. He can register himself before, can choose the bank he want to pay with in advance, and then the pure payment, it's just the authentication. So it's just that he has to prove that he is the right person, and of course the bank will check if the funds are available, and then with an instant payment, so the merchant would immediately have the funds available on his account, or at least would have a guaranteed payment there. So I think in the online case, I see that the largest advantages, for merchants really to add this payment method to their portfolio. But even in store, we see a lot of possibilities, especially in combination request to pay, where the merchant will, for instance, include also other things like loyalty to the payment process. So today he has to, for instance, the cashier will ask you to show some loyalty cards or some couponing. So he's doing the scanning, and then he's asking for the payment, and you have to take your cards out of the pocket. So it's not really a user experience. Could imagine that there will be, for instance, one QR code containing everything, containing your identification of the loyalty, which brings you some bonus points. Could also include couponing there in one step, and the payment as well. So this would be really a big advantage for both, for the consumer, not having multiple steps, but also for the merchant, would simplify the cashier process and speed up the cashier process in many cases. So I think also for the in-store case, we see big advantages, and even today, of course, we are mainly using QR code because of the blockage of the Apple API. But let's assume that this barrier will be replaced. Then we can have even NFC there, and then we have contactless, and then this user experience will be even much more convenient. And the last one is about billing, where I mentioned before that we all know that we have regular payments, for instance, with our utility providers, but also imagine all the billings taking place in the B2B area, where a company is paying their subcontractors and everything. Here, the payment itself is important, but the reconciliation is becoming much more important around there. So we are currently designing products around the account-based payments, supporting corporates or merchants to improve the reconciliation process around the payment itself. So I think we are just at the beginning of discovering all these interesting use cases, and there will be, for sure, there will be more. And this was also the intention of PSD2 to ask also fintechs, agile working companies, to come up with very smart ideas. And the basic are, of course, is always the payment and maybe the account information. But what we can build around is the sky is the limit.
Sure, interesting. Okay, so I think you quite rightly have identified that this is, we're at the beginning of the process, right? That there's a potential for this to as you say, go all the way. The sky's the limit. But at the moment, it's very much in terms of raw numbers. You know, the number of A2A payments versus card payments across Europe is still very, very low. And there's a kind of point that was raised in the introduction, and something that we've brought up since is the kind of the price comparison against, you know, what a card payment costs a consumer and a merchant now versus what a account-to-account payment costs those same parties. And at the moment, there's a big disparity between those, and I think there's quite a lot of focus on that. What are your thoughts about, you know, let's put ourselves in the future. Let's put ourselves in a position where maybe account-to-account payments are now 50% of the market and card payments are 50% of the market, just to keep things simple. Do you still think that account-to-account payments will be priced in the same way? Or do you think that A2A payments will increase in price as more layers of authentication, of access, of fraud activity are added to that? You know, what are your thoughts around that as a comparison, you know, to cards?
Before I talk about price, I would like to mention maybe a few challenges we currently have. Yeah? So there are reasons why the transaction volumes are still lower than expected. Yeah? First of all, you have to see that the success of the payment method is different in different parts of Europe. Yeah? So for instance, UK, they have already a quite high number of transactions, and the reason for that is, for instance, the existence of faster payments in the UK in a broader sense, that everybody, all banks participating. And in Europe, we don't have a mandatory instant payment yet, and some of the players are charging high fees. In Germany, for instance, you can pay up to €1 per instant transaction, which is of course killing the whole ideas. Yeah, so especially because this has to be paid by the consumer and not by the merchant. So therefore, it's nonsense to believe that this makes it successful. So therefore, the missing instant payment has of course then the disadvantage that the merchant has to take the risk of a payment guarantee, or has to ask a third party to provide this payment guarantee. A second thing is that even though that everything was implemented in 2019, we are still seeing that not all APIs coming from the banks are mature, well-designed, and user-friendly. So we have unstable APIs, a lot of bugs in and everything. And of course, the strong customer authentication workflow is not optimal at many banks. So the user experience for you as a user is not the same as you would have it, for instance, with the wallet, for instance. So therefore, I think we are in process in optimizing, and we see really a lot of progress there. Yeah. So in some countries like France, we see really that the banks understand that this is necessary for the success, and they improve. Yeah. So therefore, I think for the moment we have still this trouble, and this will also lead to, let's say, to higher pricing in a sense of, as you mentioned, the risk of frauds and maybe misusage. Yeah. So but the concept itself, it's completely secure. Yeah. Based on the PSD2 APIs, PSD2 rules, we have a strong customer authentication for each and every payment. So there is, let's say, a very low risk of misusage, in the sense that somebody can use this payment method without being the account holder. What is, of course, another story is what I mentioned with the payment risk itself, because we are talking about payment initiation. That means the payment is registered at your bank account, and the bank has checked that the account is valid, that the account is not blocked, and at the moment is sufficient funds available. So at the moment, they are checking if the account is existing, if the account has sufficient funds available at the moment. But of course, if the clearing and settlement will take place next night, or maybe the day after, in case of not instant payment, the transaction could still fail. So therefore, there is a small risk for a payment guarantee, and this of course will increase the costs as well. Yeah. So therefore, I think for the moment you are right, but I see really ongoing activities to make instant payment mandatory also in all parts of Europe, and then the majority of these issues will be solved.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, I mean, there will be some people listening to this, of course, who'll be saying, yeah, you're talking upside, right? We've talked a lot about the upside, the problem solving, the benefits, but of course, you and I and they will also know that there is no payment system on the planet that is 100% secure. So let's just have a quick, let's address that, right? And discuss what the potential implications from fraudulent account-to-account payments are. I mean, I take the point that you mentioned earlier on about the banks and the understandings around the account, etc. But we know that fraud is occurring. So what do you see as the trend there? And potentially, I know that the Worldline has processes in place. So maybe you could just address the side of the fraud side and how you guys read that and what you are doing to stop the worst of it.
Yeah, you're fully right. Yeah. So at the moment, to say the fraud is still low because of the low transaction volume. Yeah. So it's like always, if it becomes more successful, then also the criminals will take more, will put more effort on this topic. Yeah. I think there will be, of course, new types of fraud, maybe compared to cards. Yeah? And we, of course, aware of this. Yeah? So on one hand side, the thing I mentioned before, that only licensed TPPs can execute such account payments. And they are not only licensed in the sense of they have to prove who they are, but we also have to establish anti-fraud activities, money laundering checks, and everything. So we are have built up a complete setting of reporting and checks around the payment method to monitor the behavior of the users. Yeah, and also the usage of the mobile phone brings us completely new possibilities, for instance, compared to cards. Yeah? So first of all, something like card numbers will not be stored. Yeah? We will tokenize everything. Yeah. Secondly, you could have a kind of digital footprint of the mobile device to see if for instance, the payment is done from a different device, and then maybe you can enter a different level of additional security measures than like a normal way. Yeah. You could have PSD2 is offering also trusted beneficiary rules where you can say, okay, I always buy my bread at this bakery every week, and so everybody can be sure that this is not a fraud transaction. We also do, of course, monitoring the type of the merchants. If it's what kind of business is it, online gaming, or is it a jewelry, or is it a bakery? So therefore, we do similar things like we do for cards, also for account payments. But of course, you're right. There will be new pattern, but we have the right tools in place to monitor closely the transactions and to find out such a new patterns quite soon. And I also think that the community works together to share this experience to make the payment method attractive.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Henrik. I think that was it's right to address this as an issue. So look, we're coming towards the end, and I think you've given a very kind of robust response to the questions. It's been very honest. And I very much appreciate that, and I know that the audience listening to this will appreciate that as well. I think the final question for me is, clearly there's a very well thought out strategy at Worldline around A2A payments. So my final question to you is, where does Worldline stand in terms of the innovation around A2A? We've discussed that we're right at the beginning of the journey. I think that probably takes away a huge amount of the hard work that's been done to get to this point in terms of regulatory support, the investment put in by the banks, those ones that have sorted their APIs out correctly, the providers who have also invested lots of money in order to provide products for consumers and merchants. So what's the next stage of the innovation from your perspective?
Yeah, before going to the innovative stuff, maybe a few words about the commodity below. Yeah, so you
Sure.
mentioned saying we have the banks connected. Was a huge work, yeah, because we have currently more than 3,500 banks connected in 18 countries. That means we are connected to the various APIs. So there is not one API in Europe. There is a standard in France, another one in the UK, then there's the Berlin group, and then we have even some local standards in, for instance, Czech Republic or Poland, yeah, and we have all covered them either directly or with partners, so we can provide a reach. This is, let's say, the basic. Yeah, this is it's nothing sexy or innovative, but it's necessary to fulfill the task. Yeah.
Sure.
Together with our colleagues from Merchant Service, we also offer the necessary license to provide the service commercially to merchants. And then on top of these basic functionalities, we of course offer necessary supporting functionalities like reconciliation of payments, like payment notification towards the merchant and the consumer, and of course refunds, like we know it from cards. Yeah. And having this together, then we come to, let's say, more advanced functionalities, like I said, installment payments, yeah, where you can split your payment in several parts, like recurring payments. Yeah, in addition, together with a request to pay, this could replace certain parts of the direct debit payments today. Yeah, or future dated payments, where you can do things like buy now, pay later functionalities. Yeah, but also we take the account information to support the payment things, like account verification, yeah, to check if the person applying for a contract is also the account holder, or credit scoring, which could be used to calculate the risk taken by the merchant or by a third party if the payment is delayed, yeah, in this sense. So therefore we have multiple things based on our basic functionality, which is one API for all the banks and the license to operate it in a commercial way. And we see plenty of functionalities on top of that.
Amazing. Henrik, thank you very much for joining me today. This has been really, really interesting. And as you say, it's the start of the journey for account-to-account payments. And I hope that you'll join me in the future. Maybe we can talk more about the successes of some of the case studies that you've given today. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Goodbye.